Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about the optic changes for the Cold War weapons and how they compare to the VLK, as well as whether or not you should be using the SUSAT or the 3X or the 4X, or how those reticles look in game, so you kind of have a better idea of what they're doing and if they actually help you out with recoil. I went and tested a few different weapons so we can kind of see what's going to happen here. If you enjoy the video, learn something new, please do me a favor, hit the like button. If you're brand new, want to find your way back, just double check, make sure you subscribe with notifications on. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is some of the testing I did in Plunder against the wall testing. I mounted up so that I wouldn't have any other variables. Sometimes with the idle sway, it'll mess up the recoil pattern and lead to a lot of confusion. So for all of these, I mounted up from the exact same spot, left the match, spawned back in, went to the exact same spot so we can get this side-by-side comparison. Also, a quick side note, I want to give you guys a heads up. My merch is dropping as of this video going live. So if you're interested in getting the 1 million merch, I do appreciate all the support you guys have given the channel. But if you're interested in a hat, a hoodie, a shirt, whatever the case is, it will be going live and a link will be down in the description. Thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of the video. So pretty much I already have a head-to-head with the slow-mo. We're going to see the FARA followed by the AK-47, the Cold War version, followed by them in slow motion. So you can kind of see exactly what's happening visually and how much room they take up. So right here, we're going to go ahead and press play. We're mounted from the exact same spot. You can kind of see how the little recoil pattern goes. This is only 30 bullets. And a lot of people will say, hey, you know what? Cold War guns don't have a lot of recoil, but then you start to compare them to Modern Warfare guns and you run into a lot of issues. So this is going to be a little bit slower. You can kind of see how it goes, how much visual shake there is. They've actually cut down a lot on that. So now the 3X and the 4X are giving you a similar effect that the SUSAT gave you way back when, where it doesn't even look like it's moving because it's kind of zoomed out. And now what we'll do is go ahead and kind of compare the actual zoom in compared to the VLK and against each other. So you kind of have an idea of how much zoom you're actually getting. All right, so what we're going to look at here is we have the normal Cold War reflex right here. You can see kind of how far it's zoomed out. And what I'll do is we're going to go in order a little bit here. One of the weapons optics that they did not impact was the Vision Tech. So if I go over here, what you'll see is as the Vision Tech goes in, you can kind of see how much more it zooms in. But it also has this warping effect that they forgot on the Vision Tech, but they fix on like the Tundra base optics. So to see how there's a little bit of rounding, even though these edges are supposed to be straight. That's kind of one of the issues with the Vision Tech is it does warp your perception. But you can see you're getting significant zoom compared to what we're seeing on the other one. Then if we go on the Vision Tech and we do the exact same thing, what we can see is how much it's zooming in or not zooming in. You can see the outside, it's not as zoomed in. And then what we'll do is compare this for the Cold War 3X. So right here we have the Cold War 3X. And now you're going to see this comparison with the VLK. So when we compare this to the VLK, it ends up being pretty much the exact same zoom level as the VLK. It looks slightly different because I'm not standing in the exact spot, but you can see right here, it's pretty much the same. Then once we go to the VLK, now that we know that the VLK is the same, we can actually get rid of the VLK and we can actually sort that one in here. And this is going to go to the 4X, which zooms in quite a bit. So look at the lock in the middle as a comparison. Here's the VLK, which has the same zoom as the Cold War one. So see how tiny that little lock is on the screen? As we zoom in a little bit closer, you're going to see that you're getting significant zoom. So even though the optic doesn't look like it, obviously this is on affected FOV. So when you do it on console, it'll probably zoom in a little bit more on the outside, but you can kind of see how much is actually being warped here. So you're getting significant zoom, and then it ends up cutting off a little bit of that peripheral vision on the outside. Then I've gone ahead, I did that, I compared all the recoil patterns, and that's where it gets a little bit interesting. So what I did want to show here is a funny thing where I was talking about where a lot of times people are wondering how much it's actually helping out with the recoil. And visually, you can see that there's a little bit of helping here. If we look at the standard FARA iron sight with the 30 mag, and this is a meta build for long range. So you're going to use the agency or GRU suppressor, you're going to be using the bullet velocity barrel, you're going to be using the field agent grip, and then you're going to be using iron sights, optic, or optic, right? And then what we can see here is when we use that 30 mag, you can see that it's kind of shrinking it down just a little bit. And then we can see that with the 4X, you can see it's even tightening it up a little bit. It's almost like it has a little bit of added or aiming stability to it. We don't get that same effect quite as much with the Cold War AK-47, but you can kind of see how it looks. It has a lot more wobbliness to it. 3X does look like it's helping. Then what I did want to do is show this as a comparison. This is 30 bullets, and this is the Kilo and the AMAX. Same distance, everything. This is a 60 round mag with the Kilo. Look at how little bit the bullets actually move here. It's kind of ridiculous what we're seeing there. We see the same thing with the AMAX. It has very little recoil. It just goes straight up. People are like, how do you control it? Well, it literally, you just pull down. Like, that's kind of how easy it is. The Kilo goes up and then it goes a little bit to the side, but so slow that you barely have to adjust this thing. It's so stupid how accurate it is, especially within its 85 meter range. You still get an 11 shot to kill, which is kind of like still really good with the Kilo for how forgiving the shot is. Now let's go ahead and look at what that looks like when you actually put numbers to this stuff. And what I did for this is I pretty much drew a box kind of keeping this thing in, and I did this for all of these different patterns here. I took averages so we can compare them. Now let's kind of look at what that numbers add up to be. So what I ended up doing is I measured it. Like I said, we ended up with the vertical pixels along with the horizontal pixels, and then I averaged them here. When we do that same thing across the board for the FARA, we can see with the 3X, we're getting a reduction in recoil. About 15% vertical, 16% horizontal. What I did want to point out is there's so much inconsistency with these. I'd have to do this recoil test of probably 100 times to get a little bit more accurate number, because if we look closely, you can see that the horizontal is not even changing that much. From 24 to 24, it's this outlier right here. Literally, if I change this to 24, it looks like it's only helping it a little bit instead of the amount it was. So, like I said, it is helping, but it might be a little bit less, might be a little bit more than what we're seeing in this specific example here. When we look at the 4X, we're getting a very similar issue here, where you can see there's pretty much a straight line reduction across the board. When we go over to the Cold War AK, you can see the typical recoil pattern here with about 212 pixels versus a 40. There is a slight reduction, so there is a pattern emerging that there is a reduction to recoil, both vertical, stabilization, horizontal, whatever you want to call it. But I highlighted these because if you look at this one, this recoil is actually worse than this one. This was like a really good anomaly here that kind of probably threw off the average. But like I said, if I did this 100 times, we'd get something more accurate. We don't need the exact number that it's helping or hurting recoil. All we need to know is proof of concept. Is it actually helping your recoil? And that's what we see here. About a 10, 15, 5, 10, 15% increase or improving your recoil. So one thing I did want to point out with the AMAX here, you can see that its vertical recoil is 163, but this is firing 45 bullets as compared to what we did in this scenario where we only fired 30. So that means this recoil pattern could be 50% more, like talking about 300, literally double the recoil that we're getting with the AMAX. So that's why the AMAX is significantly easier to use than the Cold War AK at far ranges. That's why you see so many people using it as sniper support and as an SMG, just because that recoil is literally destroying the gun. And that's where you get back to maybe including attachments that are going to actually help out with recoil for a lot of the Cold War guns, like the barrel, the underbarrel is actually helping out, maybe a tack laser. There's a lot of great options there. And the same thing with this scenario. If we actually use 45 bullets, you're talking about a recoil that's probably gonna be 50% more. 50% more on 105 is right around the AMAX. You might as well get the hard-hitting AMAX for 163 vertical. And that's one of the problems, like I said, we're running two Cold War guns, especially now that they've zoomed that optic out. Even though you're getting the help, it's not enough. You're not competing with the 163 vert of a hard-hitting gun that still has a really good TTK, even after the headshot damage nerf. So overall, I still think the best option is going to be the AMAX. I think for a lot of people, it's just going to take some getting used to using these various other optics. These other reticles do work. They are much cleaner than they were initially, which is a nice change that they actually went in. They gave us the T-pose and they gave us a standard VLK looking optics, which are very popular. We pretty much what most people use. So that's a nice change that they made. Quality of life. They are taking their time. Obviously, it's been since December that this integration happened, and we covered a lot of these types of things that they should have changed. It's taken them a little bit longer than I thought they would take. But eventually, we're going to get to the point where we're basically going to have what we need for more weapons to be viable long range. Obviously, the close range has been super viable, especially with a lot of the mobility changes they've made to bring some of the SMGs into the mix that weren't there. and some of the rifles a little bit more out of the mix for that close range. So let me know what your guys' thoughts. Are you guys going to be sticking with the 3X, 4X? Are you going to be using only the Modern Warfare guns? What's the case? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, learned something new, please do me a favor, hit the like button. If you're brand new, want to find your way back, double check, make sure you subscribe with notifications on. Appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.